Welcome to Monroe MustHangs. I'm your host, David Spiegel, and today is part 2 of my 2-part interview with Allaire Primiano, Director of Athletics for the Monroe Express. Last week we talked about the beginnings of the Express and Allaire's role in creating the new Monroe Athletic Department. Today we continue that story and talk about what's going on with the Express today. Make sure you check out last week's episode, and here's the second half of my interview with Allaire Primiano. So, as we alluded to a little bit before, we're not comparing athletically the Mustangs to the Express because one is Division I, one is Division III. So obviously that was part of the plan, was to make the Express a Division III program from the jump. So what went into the decision to become a Division III program and join what is the most populated section of Region 15?
Yes. So again, the comparison really, there is no comparison, because with the Mustangs from the years of 2012 till about 2016 exactly, the Mustangs had such exponential growth in various areas. And part of that growth came from the national population, the international population winning. I mean, you know, the success that the Mustangs had both in the classroom and on their respective field of play was remarkable at the time. So they were tapping into the national and international population so much that the PSAL, which is, I can tell you, I take my relationship with the PSAL and just the various public schools within the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, are so valuable. And the Mustangs actually saw themselves starting to go into different markets with the national and international population and having success, and maybe not providing as many opportunities as they initially were for the PSAL student athletes, which is the Public School Athletic League in New York City. And the New York City Department of Education for the Bronx campus, it was just such, not even a feeder, but it was something that I took pride in, and I know that Lou took pride in as well, as he came from the NYC DOE and the Bronx. Just reaching out to those public schools, it just gave me such great, such great pleasure, to be honest, because it was developing relationships with fellow athletic directors and fellow high school professionals in the public schools that had the same mission that we did. And they made an impact on the student athletes' lives. And then they felt so comfortable in sending those student athletes to us. So part of the reason why we made that decision to go Division III was to tap into and, provide, most importantly, provide opportunities for the New York City Department of Education student athletes, which is the PSAL. So those PSAL student athletes were, the highest priority recruits for us. We, again, developed those relationships. The coaches did their outreach. The coaches took all of the time in the world. I have to say, just the outreach that the coaches do on a daily basis is so valuable. And developing those relationships, and, we even had holiday cards sent this year and showing the success that the student athletes are receiving at Monroe College. So it was so valuable. But to that point of being Division III, it was, although we're non-scholarship, it was let's be the very best that we can be, and let's really provide that quality experience for the PSAL student athletes on the Bronx campus. And what's so incredible now, and I want to get back to Division III after I mention this, but what's so great now is we've recently, in the past year and a half, have been recruiting, not even recruiting actively, but we have student athletes reach out to us at the national level. And when those student athletes come to us at the national level and participate with the Monroe Express, the experience that they receive with the different cultures that we have in New York City it's so rewarding to see, because you see that all these different cultures are mixing, as the Mustangs have, as but it's everybody coming from, at the national level. For those student athletes that have come from the national level and come to the Bronx to participate with us, they're getting such a well-cultured individual from New York City. And I think that's it's like the one component that you almost fail to forget sometimes And I think that with the Mustangs, and as you know, I know you can share with the Mustangs and how unbelievable it must be to see the different nationalities come together. But with the CUNY and with the CUNY Act being, of course, in the city, and our region, which Region 15, and we've been such a part of Region 15 for all of our existence. Region 15, of course, had the Mustangs as Division 1. We came in as the Express at the Division 3 level, and all of our competition at the local level, we have the most competition at the Division 3 level in the city. And it's, I can say that I've developed such great partnerships with all of the CUNY athletic directors and the SUNY athletic directors too. And it's been of such great value to us to be welcomed. You're welcomed into a region, but they also know that we're going to do what's in the best interest of the student athlete, and they appreciate that.
And I know from my perspective, when it comes to Region 15, just having come from schools before Monroe College that were NCAA Division 3, Division 2, you get very used to being a part of a conference. And with the Mustangs, while they are part of Region 15, it's usually one or two other schools at most, depending on the season. So you don't really see too much of that conference action. You don't really have too much camaraderie with other administrators, for me, other sports information directors from the other schools at our level, because there just aren't that many of them. So I know one thing that I enjoy a lot with Region 15 and with working with the Express is that you're seeing the same schools with every sport. So you're getting used to the same people who you're talking to, and, different same administrators. Sometimes you see the same athletes playing different sports. So, it's the structure of it all is also, really easy to work with, of course. And, you just become familiar with all the other schools. So I think that really helps. And I think it just adds to the competitive drive for a lot of these athletes, because you see the same teams every year as well. And, that's the team we want to beat this time around. We didn't get them last year, and we know we're going to see them again. So I think it adds to the competition, just being at the Division 3 level, just knowing that you have all these opponents that you're going to see often, and you're all playing each other. I think from my perspective, at least, it helps a lot.
Yeah. And just to that point, you mentioned it, you've seen the same teams year after year. It's also so great to see when one of your student athletes knows, a few student athletes on the other teams just because of local competition in high school. And they're like, hey, I played against him in high school, and, I really, really, really want my revenge now. So it's great to see the competitive camaraderie come out too.
Yeah, of course, like you said, they played against them in high school. They also played with them in high school too. So yeah. That's one thing is that we see as well, is that especially with the CUNY schools, that we see, you have 5 schools in the same area that are competing for the same athlete half the time. So, they're familiar with the schools, or a lot of them want to say, like, listen, they want to show that they made the right choice coming to Monroe. So, I think it just, like I said, it helps with the competitive drive, in my opinion, not an athlete, but not, in my opinion. But obviously, we've seen it. We started off with the 6 programs that first year, and we've been slowly adding more. We have softball now. We have cross country, track and field still in the works, because this past season has not happened yet. So we're getting there. But, the way things look right now to you, the way it started to where we are now, where do you see this growth? Like, where do you see this growing over the next few years, seeing as how we've already grown so much in just a short amount of time? What's basically next for the Express?
Yeah, so I just want to speak to growth quickly on, where we came from and where we are now. So again, we didn't have any of our own facilities. We had a 600 square foot weight room. Roberto Clemente was really just such a strong partner in our development and our growth and building that foundation. So we eventually had a significant size of a weight room, which we currently have now. And we have a very large athletic training room, and we have 2 fantastic athletic trainers, and Morgan, who's been really since year 1 with us, year 2. She now has, Amanda that's come on board with us, and Morgan leads the sports medicine department with Jessica. And those 2 facilities, weight room and athletic training room, it's not that they're never forgotten, because they're so important to any type of growth and skill set, and just making sure that you're taking care of the health and the safety of the student athlete. But to have facilities for both now really means so much to us because, again, starting in cubes. So we have that too. We have that now, which is so valuable. And then we recently have renovated the Mintz Auditorium. So the Mintz Auditorium was actually in the past the gymnasium and athletic facility for the MustHangs years ago. So I want to say maybe 10 years ago, they converted the facility into a multi-use, multi-purpose space, I should say. And it was an auditorium. It was used for events. It's been used for everything. And as of recently, actually, this took place over the summer and has been in the talks for the past year. Over the summer, we converted, I guess you could say, renovated and reverted the facility back into what it is now, which is a gymnasium. It's not, of course, a size court that is used at the college level, but it's a practice facility. And to say that we have various practice facilities and for the coaches and their recruitment process now, it's valuable. So that attributed to the growth. And the Mintz now has, a beautiful floor. It has, 2 basketball hoops. We have phantom batting cages that go up and down, and we have floor covering. And, Paul has taken such a lead with making sure that everything it fits so well in that space. And it's really become a multi-purpose space. And actually, which is like a Christmas gift to us all, over the past few weeks, our wall padding has been installed. So the great wall padding just like adds the final touch to what is going to be such an incredible facility for our own student athletes. And to have something on campus for them, it really means the work. It's just so valuable, and it's so rewarding for all of us, because to see where we've come from in those cubes and not having much, to having our own offices with doors, and to having this facility on campus, and it just attributes to the growth that we've seen in this time. And it comes down to, again, the support and the incredible support that we've received from senior administration and Lou, and understanding what is to come is, again, something that I can't put into words, because with this growth in such a short period of time, year 1, year 2 is a full year, year 3, as of course, a year that ended unfortunately shorter than we anticipated. Everyone, is like, are we going to stop growing now? Yeah, maybe there's a stunt in our growth, but I don't even view it as such, because nothing has stopped. And other than athletic activity, athletic competition consistently. And we're going to continue growing. And when we all, and Lou, of course, in his position now of assistant vice president of athletics, and, working hand in hand with Mr. Dimon and President Jerome, and supporting our vision that's going to be continuing, I can see, although I most likely can't share, I can see various sports being added in the very near future, which is so exciting. I see a facility of our own coming about on campus, and more than just the Mintz. And I see just everything really coming together quite nicely, because part of the growth is attributed to the recruitment and athletic admissions with Tyshawn Boykin, and making sure that everybody is onboarded properly. And then you have the coaches supporting them throughout that entire process. And if we continuously, and I know we will, I can confidently say we will, as we confidently move forward together as a team, the success is, there's no ceiling for it, because we're all working as a team, and we all are aligned with the same vision. And, of course there are challenges, of course there are trials and tribulations that come up, but again, facing adversity, how we overcome it, it speaks for ourselves, and how we understand where there's a will, there's a way. Let's figure it out. We may not know how we may need to get to the growth that we want to, but if we are focusing on what matters, the impact that we have on the student athlete, every component that the student athlete is surrounded by, academics, their growth, the values that we're instilling, and the skill development, the athletic skill development that increases the quality of a program, and competition, and winning, and, constantly making strides towards making more of an impact in the region and with local opponents, and really being able to, win in every area. And it doesn't just come in athletic competition and, your winning percentage. It comes in academics and how are we going to become the very best that we can be throughout this growth. So, to your initial question, I think that the growth, there isn't a ceiling right now, because every single year we have experienced and implemented a significant amount of growth. How we've done so is really just getting to the point of being a team and coming together and understanding that the future is bright in every way.
I would certainly say it is. And just 2 points I wanted to make from what you said is, I remember I used to visit the Bronx campus more often at first, and now I haven't had the need to really be there so often. So every time I do, I always felt like I was visiting you in a different building and a different office, and just seeing like the way that the facilities were changing. The first time I was there, I remember the annex being the weight room, and we used it as the media room for photo day. And we had News 12 come in and meet everyone there, and they spoke to you and some coaches. And just, a month or two later, there were those, there was a cube up for a makeshift athletic training room with a fake door. And I remember the trainers back then just always being bothered, and any second of the day, never getting a few minutes of peace there. Exactly. Having the weight room right next door to them too, which now, we started off with that. And again, it speaks to the athletes too. What they started with to what they have now is really amazing. But, like you said, it's always something new every single year with the Express. And obviously the commitment to the athletic program from the college itself has been, impactful, of course, and very important to the growth of the program. And, obviously athletics are seen as a valuable commodity at Monroe College. So that growth continues for both campuses, really. And then the other sign of growth that I've seen as well, and you alluded to it a little bit, is on the academic side, where as someone who is in charge of a lot of the awards throughout the year and at the end of the year, one thing I noticed every single year is just the number of academic awards that Monroe Express student athletes are receiving goes up every single year. And, you see that NJCAA all academic team, the number keeps increasing. The number of teams that qualify for the team award is increasing every single year. I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to win one of those awards at some point soon, because of just how quickly things are rising. And, the Mustangs are at that level right now. And, that's something the Express can obviously compete with. So I could see that coming at some point in the future, just because, you're seeing strong students coming in already, and, raising the bar every single year. So, looking forward to seeing how much growth we can really have here, because like you said, there really isn't the ceiling right now.
Exactly. And again, the ceiling, we certainly don't have it at the moment. And I think that, you alluding to the fact that it's like every single time you saw us in a different space when you come visit, and it feels that way too, because I find that the vision always has to remain moving forward and looking forward. Which I think even aligns with the NJCA mission right now, if I'm not mistaken. So having that vision of always looking forward and moving forward and understanding like, hey, let's see which areas we can enhance now. I think it's so important. And we as a team, and we wouldn't be able to do that with, again, the support of administration, but it also comes from everyone aligning with that mission and vision, and even the student athletes understanding like, hey, maybe not postseason's not an option for us this year, but hey, let's refocus our energy into academics. And that comes from the leadership of each and every coach. It really does. And the leadership that we have across the board is really so valuable.
Monroe MustHangs is sponsored by the Monroe MustHangs Sideline Store, powered by our apparel partners at BSN Sports. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, hats, jackets, or accessories, the Monroe MustHangs Sideline Store has it all. Gear up with the new Monroe MustHangs logo and make it your own with hundreds of customizable options, including sports-specific designs. For the month of January, you could take 20% off all orders of $85 or more by using the promo code JAN21. That's JAN21. Visit MonroeCollegeMustangs.com/shop to look your best as you cheer on the Mustangs. I agree with that. And, I think we have a lot of good coaches in place right now too that have really gotten these programs to where we want them to be right now. Always good to see too that a lot of them are maybe Mustang alumni or coaches that worked with the Mustangs for a long time. Obviously, you mentioned Georgie before, and Mike Tewitt has been very involved with the basketball program, and he was a Mustang alumni. John Torres leading the baseball program, of course. He was the JV baseball team in Monroe for a long time. So, it's again, I mentioned keeping everyone in house before, but I think it's everything is just continuing to head in the right direction, in my opinion, with all the different programs. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Chris Neely too, who was the JV men's basketball coach for the Mustangs since that program began, the JV program at least. And he has earned his way to the varsity coaching position with the Monroe Express. So I'm excited to see what he does with that, just because he did so much and he was so involved with the JV program in New Rochelle. But one thing that's important right now with the leadership we do have is important, because obviously it's been a very challenging year in 2020. Obviously now we're looking forward to 21. Things are looking brighter, looking up, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what's happened in the last 9-10 months. One in March when everything came to a halt. We had baseball and softball season end. Second season of Express softball didn't even get to happen, that we were so excited for. And again, the last 9 or 10 months we've been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Didn't have our fall seasons at all. So, I've spoken with a bunch of different Mustang coaches and some alumni that have, about their experiences, but I haven't gotten to really speak with someone who's in our administration like you. Haven't talked to Lou yet either, but someone who could really speak about everything that's gone on from the highest level with the pandemic. So let's take it back to March too, because that was obviously such a challenging time for all of us. Just the day that we had to kind of announce that everything was done. Like that was it. We couldn't do anything anymore. If you can remember it, how was that day for you? And then, the coming month of just trying to figure out what exactly is going on and where we're going with this thing.
Yes, that's a really great question. And honestly, when I think back to March, I have it's a sickening feeling, of course, for anyone that can think back to March and being in college athletics. But when I look back to March, while I have a sickening feeling, I had such empathy with the coaches. And although it was actually, I have to say, probably so difficult for me not to show, because of course you're trying to be that pillar. You're trying to lead by saying, don't worry, we're going to get through this. But of course, as a former coach and placing myself in their shoes, and you're preparing and having so much preparation for seasons, and you're talking about two sports, baseball and softball, who have leaders and student athletes that had put in so much time in fall ball, in building their programs to what they are today. And just even throughout the months of January, February, and March, you're speaking on a winter, a January and February, which was so warm. We refer to it as like a Cinderella story. We were outside in January and February. It was warm. There was no snow on the turf. Roberto Clemente was fantastic in accommodating us in the winter months. We made the most of it. And as I mentioned, like these, Coach John Torres and Coach Connor Moriarty, they had invested so much time and energy with their student athletes and coaching staff into what was going to be such an exciting and kind of like a spring season that was really going to turn both programs in such a strong direction, just continuously moving them forward. So I think that just understanding how much time and effort that of course every coach puts in, but just understanding the type of preseason that we had for those sports and understanding what the season looked like. And even myself, I was like looking at the schedule and I was like, this is going to be great. So exciting. And then when you, of course, hear, word across the world of COVID come about, I have to say, at that point, not that I didn't take it seriously, because of course it's turning into a pandemic at that time. I'm going to take it seriously, but I didn't understand the type of impact that it would have on our coaching staff, our student athletes, and just overall our operations. So as we entered March, and of course everything started to pick up in Washington State and the West Coast, and slowly but surely it was identified in New York City. As things started to pick up across the country and that decision came about, it was of course a devastating decision to share with the student athletes, and more importantly our coaches, that again take so much pride in what's to come. But it was really, I knew that I had to be as supportive as I could during that time, although it was a challenging decision across the board. We knew it was in the best interest for the health and safety of all of our student athletes, coaches, and staff. But at the same time, when the stay-at-home order came, and like shortly after our decision, it was honestly a time that it's like everything paused, I feel like, in that moment, and we all like conversed and spoke to one another, but we also didn't understand. We didn't understand the impact, the long-term impact. As a college, we were saying, okay, let's go virtual until the end of March and let's see where it takes us. And I think that the way that it kind of spiraled out of control throughout the month of March into April, when reality set in, I myself, I'm just thinking, okay, if spring isn't an option, let's see what we can do in the summer. Okay, summer's not an option. Let's refocus our energy to August 1 preseason for our 2020-21 academic year. And that continued. And to this day, it's continuing. I have to say, we as a college handled it extremely well. Senior administration, President Jerome, Mr. Dimon took such a strong lead. I relied on Mr. Dimon throughout this entire pandemic. For, of course, while I'm keeping myself abreast of what's going on throughout the country, I conversed a lot with Mr. Dimon because I was in a position where, he was conversing the most with the health department and Jessica Rayford and leading the sports medicine department. So we did the best we could in every area. And I can confidently say that. And I think I'm very fortunate to confidently say that, and saying that we were still active. But, to that point and handling the pandemic, and although it was, so devastating to our coaches, our student athletes, and our entire staff. But, while the pandemic is here and currently actively, we're all going through it. Our most important, the most important component didn't stop. The world and continuous activity obviously stopped. That's evident. But the most important component, which was impacting student athletes' lives, mentorship, leading in academics, really stressing the most important aspect of during this time, and really understanding that we had to be our toughest. I remember waking up every day and understanding, although I'm staying at home and I'm working from home and we're all getting used to this together and we're having these meetings, it was more of a time I have to be the strongest right now because I have to support student athletes, and we have to provide them support that they may not have at home, or they may not have, personally, and, in their personal lives. So I remember always telling myself and, just telling my family and friends that were so supportive to me during that time. I remember saying, I have to be the strongest that I can be, because although this time period that, the pandemic is happening, we're still at a point where nothing is going to stop. The college has to continuously operate. Recruiting never stops. Understanding how much we're going to impact the student athletes' lives never stop. The virtual setting never stops. We stress the structured virtual setting so much. And whether it be a Zoom workout, a Zoom game, every single coach identified the areas that they were the strongest in. And to see everyone, our entire coaching staff overcome such a challenging time, I think was really what attributed to so much, value that you look back at the time. As you know, I'm a very optimistic person, but to take those silver linings and really share the most important component of what brought us to where we are today, it was the strength and understanding, overcoming the adversity. And that's who we are as athletes. We overcome the adversity. We understand that, even just the mental game in athletics kind of translates to what we're currently going through. And The mental health and just the support is so important during this time. And it remains our utmost priority. It really does.
Yeah, I will say, I think one thing that was very clear from the start with all this is that as hard of a decision as it was to, make the campus go virtual, to stop athletics, as difficult as that is, it was also a very easy decision because the health and safety of the student athletes, of the faculty, of the staff, of the administration was taken into account right from the start, and it was prioritized. And it's a very comforting feeling knowing that, the priorities felt like they were where they should be. And, we're obviously it's difficult because we went through all these months, wishing and hoping that this was just going to go away and that the fall was going to come around and we'd be able to get back to what we know, which is, competing athletically. And, at the NJCAA as a whole had to make the decision too, that it really wasn't going to risk it across the country. Things are different in every state, or at least they think it is. But they decided basically almost none of the sports were going to compete in the fall. Looking forward to the spring semester for us, which is the winter semester, just hoping that things can get back together by then. But even now, it's December, January, and we're still looking, kind of waiting and hoping for things to continue getting better. Obviously, we sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel right now, but not quite there yet. So that's unfortunately resulted in us still having to delay getting back to competition. But we went through the fall. We had athletes on campus in both New Rochelle and the Bronx. And, obviously an experience was still had by all of our student athletes. They still went to school, they still did their classes, and they still got to start creating that camaraderie with their teammates, with their fellow athlete. So looking back on the past few months this fall, from basically August through Thanksgiving, when we had athletes on campus and they were preparing for, a season that wasn't happening yet, how would you say that, that fall semester went from an athletics perspective?
I think it went, I have to say, when I reflect on the fall semester, we did the absolute best that we could. And while prioritizing, which was remarkable because we prioritized the health and safety of our student athletes, coaches, and staff while doing the best that we could. And I have to say, it was a quality experience for what it was worth during the pandemic. Of course, it's nothing like it would be any other fall. Again, we are in a pandemic, but we did the very best we could in every aspect. And, you made a really good point initially because, you mentioned how devastating it was for us to say, go remote and virtually altogether. Like we as the college take so much pride in the fact that we're so approachable, we're so personable. We want the student athletes to develop a relationship with us. So to not have a consistent, engaging athletic activity season in the fall, it was so devastating to us because we love the student athletes understanding that there's an open door policy across campus and across our department. Of course, they love to pick up the phone and FaceTime you and FaceTime the coaches, but it's more so the individual engagement that was lost. And I'll never forget the first week I made a conscious effort because, although throughout every year, it's so challenging to make sure that you're prioritizing getting to the field to watch practice. I remember that first week specifically. Well, of course, our athletic training staff and, our general staff were so conscious of understanding like wearing masks and setting the protocols and understanding how important it is. And that really like that COVID education. I made a conscious effort to be at practices. And, while I'm reinforcing the masks with the coaches, I'm also seeing nothing but joy and smiles and just like such genuine interaction throughout our coaching staff, our student athletes with one another. It was, again, it was an experience. I'll never forget that first week of that we returned. It was Monday, September 28th. And that entire week, it was just such, it was just such a rewarding experience to see because all of our preparation and, all the leadership that Mr. Dimmond and Jessica and our sports medicine team, Morgan provided throughout those, summer months to prepare for what we hope to be such a great fall. our student athletes and coaches just appreciated the opportunity to be together on the court, on the respective field of play, on, understanding that they're going to go to their classrooms to get their virtual classes in prior to practice, boarding the bus. It was things that in the past, not that we took for granted, because of course those are daily operations for us, but it was like the smallest of things everybody appreciated so much. And although it was only probably a total of 5-6 weeks for the fall before we unfortunately had to shut down once again, we made the most of it. And again, I think that the most important takeaway as of recently is, although, the world has stopped to some degree, we doing what we did best, mentoring and supporting our student athletes and our coaches and the leadership they provide, that didn't stop. And I have to say that I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I can say to, just even like family and friends that ask me, they're like, what are you doing during this time without sport? What are you doing? And I constantly say to them, I'm like, our job didn't stop. And I'm fortunate enough to say that, because I know that that's not the case for every, collegiate level athletic program or any athletic program across the country, world. So again, the silver linings and constantly being so appreciative and grateful for what you have. I have to say that I am so entirely grateful for our coaching staff, to remain, the leaders that they are, doing what they do best. And, while again, the world did stop, we were fortunate enough where we didn't stop, and we continued that supporting culture, and the mission, the vision, the culture, the traditions remained the same. The only halt that we had was the athletic activity, consistent athletic activity, in person, of course, and the athletic competition, which, as you mentioned, we remain very hopeful and optimistic that we are going to be returning in the next few months. As of right now, we do, of course, it's subject to change, but we do plan on returning to athletic activity as of Monday, February 1. And we want to continuously provide that very optimistic approach to that, because we want the student athletes to constantly have something to look forward to. And we know how challenging it is during this time. And we do our best with the virtual engagement. And Lenny Pitt recently came on board and has made an immediate impact in the academics area, and really focusing on, what ways we can enhance that virtual setting academically. So I think that there's a lot of good things on the horizon. And when I reflect on the past 3 months, I'm confident that our senior administration, Lou, Jessica, Morgan, Amanda, we're all prepared for the sports medicine aspect and being prepared in the health and safety. And I also know that even facilities wise, Paul understands what areas we invested so much time into in the fall, that those protocols will just pick them right up where we left off in the fall, and be able to implement the same for February 1.
I'm definitely looking forward to, obviously, we're not talking about competition just yet, but, these teams being active on social media. I get to see, their practices and how excited they are to all work out together. And, those, like I mentioned, the leadership of the coaching staff is, with the Express right now, they're the ones showing off on social media how well their teams are doing throughout all this. And, definitely something to be proud of. For the people asking you what you do with no sports right now, I can show them all the emails I get on Saturday evenings at 8:00 from you, just telling them that, you're definitely still pretty busy, if not busier than ever. So, while things have stopped, a lot of us are just still going. Sometimes we're trying new things, like starting a podcast and interview series, and we're just trying to get used to what is our current normal, of course. But remaining hopeful is very important for us as well. And, I think one thing that we have done, at least, is the administration at Monroe College and Monroe College Athletics, is remain optimistic about everything going forward, knowing that there will be a day that comes that everything gets back to normal, that we do get to compete. We do get to, travel and see our teams do what they love to do. And, like I mentioned, the light at the end of the tunnel is in sight. Of course, we don't know when we're going to reach it, but it's there. And, especially me, I'm very, very hopeful and excited for the day that things are back to how they should be. And, getting to see these student athletes competing and doing what they love to do and what they do best. So just to kind of wrap things up a little bit, some other things that we've done over the past couple of years too. Obviously, the Express being so new, we still got the opportunity to introduce new logos this past year that were exciting. A little bit different for the train. We had that Skyline logo that I know a lot of our coaches and athletes love, and we were really impressed with when we first saw it for the first time. It's just we're constantly growing. The Express, by the time that comes out, there will be a team store for the Express, of course, online, just like how the Mustangs have their online store for the last few months. The Express are going to have their own team store, so everyone can represent the Express as the way they want to, because there's going to be a lot of options on that. I'm not here to sell it right now, but nevertheless, make sure that when you go, you'll already know about it when you see this. I'll say that. Just so many things to look forward to for us. And, I know you say it all the time that you think sometimes you're too optimistic about the future, but I think that's obviously a good thing, because I think we all want to feel that same way. So just in wrapping it up, I just feel like we're still setting ourselves up for success in the future. The growth of the Mustangs, the growth of the Express is still an ongoing thing. It may have, like you said, it may have just hit a little snag on the road to that success, but we're getting there soon. So I know, like me, you're just looking forward to that day when everything is back the way it should be and we're doing the things we love to do.
Yeah, exactly that. And I'll never forget the first time we were able to return to campus for August. I think I sent the most outrageous email to my staff, because our team, because we're in a position where we're so virtual throughout this entire time. And when we finally get the go ahead that Monroe Hall and the Bronx campus is going to reopen, I mean, while following all the protocols, I was so excited. And it's everyone looks forward to it. But I think, again, my email was so outrageous with all these capital letters and exclamation points, because I'm like, yes, like, here we go. But to your point, optimistic, I remain optimistic, very hopeful. We always believe that, and I'm a firm believer in planning for the best and the worst, understanding that you're going to have various contingency plans, understanding that the plan A, B, and C, maybe they don't work, D, E, F, they're there. I also think that, while you have those various contingency plans, there's always a living document. There's always going to be adjustments that are made in this new normal that we have to adapt to, whether it be following CDC guidelines. And, there's another recommendation that comes from the health department. Being willing and able to adapt quickly and flexibility. The adaptability piece is really the most important piece that we've learned, of course, being a student athlete and a former student athlete myself, but saying, just moving forward, moving in athletics, when you're working in athletics, you have to understand that you have to be adaptable. So I remember, through prior to, of course, COVID, and throughout probably all my professional career, and maybe even earlier, but I always told myself I wanted to place myself in uncomfortable positions in order to grow. And I found myself in so many various uncomfortable positions throughout this time, because it's virtual meetings, it's understanding, okay, how do you adapt in this area, and how do you do something differently that is going to be more engaging to the student athlete, and while you're still worrying about recruitment, understanding how to support the athletes academically and facilities. And, you want to maintain those relationships with external facilities, although you're not using them. So there are so many different aspects in what keep us going, but it's our new normal. And our current normal right now, which is our new current normal. I think over the past 8 months, and being that we're now in this new year, I'm confident that we're headed in the right direction. And I firmly believe that, again, we know what we did successfully in the fall athletic activity, and to be, implementing that in the safest, and, the health and safety of our student athletes, coaches, and staff remain paramount. And that's what's most important. And we as a college are, and administration and, support staff, we're all on the same page. And that's really what matters the most. It really is.
I think, getting on yourself for that excited email back in whatever it was, September, I think. I get it, because I just know over the last few months, like you said, there are certain things we've taken for granted. And I know the few times that I've really been on campus, especially when we've had some bigger meetings, obviously using like in New Rochelle, using the Monroe Athletic Complex so we could properly distance ourselves. One thing I think about when I'm there is just like, wow, I haven't seen my coworkers in months and months or weeks. It's just, you take it for granted, because like, wow, I haven't seen anybody here in such a long time. I missed all of them. It's great to see everyone. So, I completely get the excitement of knowing, hey, we're getting back to work, at least for a little while, and at least in a different way, not as often, but just the idea of being able to get back to some sort of normalcy was obviously very exciting.
Very extremely.
So before we start leaking into a part 3 of this interview, it's probably time to shut things down here, of course. Knowing how much we had to talk about today, I'm sure we're going to have to bring you back on in the future when things are a little bit more normal and we know where things are going, and we have a ton of happy things to talk about. So, Allaire, thank you so much again for making a lot of time to talk with me today. I know your time is very valuable. That's why it took so long to plan this out. And I should probably start planning your next time on the show already, just to make sure we get it done. Again, I just appreciate you taking the time, appreciate everything you've been doing the last few months to make sure that things were heading down the right path, making sure that everyone's still upbeat. And obviously everything you've done to grow the Monroe Express program over the last few years, because obviously I don't think we're at where we are today without you. So just thank you for all that.
I appreciate that. I really do. And I can't thank you enough for all the support you've provided me throughout this time, because again, getting it off to a start in July 2017, it was extremely valuable to who we are today. Identifying Ari, bringing him aboard, guiding Ari in the best direction, and Ari having such an impact on the foundation of our social media platforms and website is extremely valuable to who we are today. And I have to say, the MustHangs, I know I need to go back to all these episodes and listen to them, but I think it's just such an awesome platform for, former alumni that can listen to them, current staff and at the college, incoming students, recruits, you name it. I think it's such a valuable platform, and I really appreciate you having me today and look forward to a very bright future.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for appreciating this. I've had a lot of fun doing it so far. So I'm glad that we're continuing to do this, doing it bigger and better than ever in 2021. So for those of you watching and listening for the first time, make sure you go back at, the last few months of episodes. They're on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Monroe MustHangs, on our Instagram page, on IGTV at Monroe MustHangs. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. And as you mentioned, the social media pages for the Express, make sure you follow the Express on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Monroe Express. And let's get that following up. We're doing a lot, and we're hoping to do more in 21. So let's keep it going. And everyone out there listening and watching, hope you had a happy new year. Hope you're staying safe. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank you. Wishing everyone a safe, healthy, and happy new year.
Thanks again, Allaire.
Thank you.